Hi, morning everyone. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Can everyone see my screen?
It's a blank screen.
Hang on, it's giving me the whiteboard thing. I don't
Yeah.
want to do the whiteboard. I want to do this. Can you see my screen now?
Data. Yes.
Great. So I thought first I'd start off by explaining what I've done. So as part of my work at The Economist, I've built the first open database that publishes excess death data across countries and for regions within countries. So we've got, I think, 21 countries on there now on our GitHub repo, and for every country and for regions within those countries, we have the total number of people who died for every week going back to 2015. We use that to make an average of the number of people who died in each week of the year, and then to calculate the expected and then excess deaths that have occurred. So I've just pulled up an example for Britain here, which is using the ONS data, and you can go into, for any region, you can go into the number of people who've died, and we've also included the number of official COVID deaths. So for all of these countries and for many regions in those countries, you can compare how the excess death data is comparing to the COVID deaths, and therefore which countries might be doing a better job in terms of tracking what's going on in terms of deaths. And also the other thing we're hoping to quantify going forwards is what share, in most places there's a gap between the number of people they officially say have died and the excess deaths, and we're trying to work out what share of that gap can be explained by people who have died of other things who might usually have been treated. So fewer people showing up to hospitals for treatment for heart disease, strokes, and there's some evidence from Scotland as well that there are an increasing number of deaths from dementia. But yeah, so this is what we've built. Is this database? So you can go in and search for any country, and we'll keep it updated. There are a couple of other people who are starting to publish this as well. I think one of the nice things that we've got that sets it apart slightly is that we've published all the underlying source code as well. So you can go through and see for every country where exactly we're putting the data in from, which is quite involved. And then you can go in, there's I think it's about 1,300 lines of R code in here that goes through in painstaking detail how we do this for every country. So if you want to check exactly how it's done, you can find it all commented up there. So part of the reason we did this, we started doing this back in March because we spotted in a few places, particularly in Spain and Italy, you could see that there were far more deaths, sort of excess deaths being recorded than official deaths. So we started working on it back then, and we were the first, I think, English speaking publication to show this. And then we were also the first to launch an interactive tracker. So this, for every country that we have, or actually this is just for the 10 that we published at the time, we have sort of interactive charts so you can go through and track what's going on, and with subnational regions as well. So hopefully the idea is hopefully it can be a useful resource for researchers who want to, because I think particularly for research about policy effectiveness, if you want to see whether particular kinds of lockdown or testing or tracing is effective, what you really want to be doing is looking at, you want a comparable measure across countries, and obviously official death tolls are accurate, and more accurate in some than others. So we're hoping this will be a useful tool for researchers because they can get a consistent data set across countries. And the other thing is that most of the countries that we've tracked this for are developed countries, so they're almost all in Europe. We've got some data for the United States as well, and a couple in South America. And we've also got some data on burials from Indonesia, which shows much higher excess than the official toll reports. So our guess is that in many developing countries, so we're thinking in particular the subcontinent, so India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Africa, you'll see probably much higher excess deaths than official deaths, just because the latter relies heavily on testing, and the testing capabilities there are less than in Europe and in North America. So going forward, we're hoping to gather as much data as we can from around the world, and if anyone spots anything that we've missed for any countries that have started publishing this. It's always really useful to be pointed towards new data sets. So if anyone spots anything, I'm all ears.
Fantastic. Thanks, James. You say you've published can you just go through the nuts and bolts of where you've published the code?
Sure.
How that's working, yeah.
So the code and the data is published on the Economist's GitHub account, and there's this publicly available repository, and I can send the address around afterwards, but it's the Economist /COVID-19 excess death tracker. We've got all the source data, so I've spent the last 5 weeks working through various sort of governmental PDFs and unwieldy spreadsheets and stuff, so you can go in if you want to see the old, for any country, you can go and see these enormous, I'm not sure that, GitHub will show these, but so it's got all the source data as well, so if you want to go and inspect that, you can have a look. And the code basically takes in all of these files and formats them into a consistent format across countries, so that if you want to do comparative analysis, you can. But the nice thing now is the code has taken most of the workload off me. It's spent a lot of time building it, but now it's much easier to maintain, thankfully. But yeah, it's all there if you want to have a look and get a bit more of a feel for what the underlying data looks like. Then it's all there for you to have a look at.
Fantastic. And just before there's a question in the chat, but what do you think is the biggest question that we need to look at?
I think the biggest one is the availability of this in outside of Europe and America. I think this is going to be absolutely crucial to have this stuff for understanding how widespread the crisis is in Africa and India. And the unfortunate fact of this is that it's much easier to count the number of people who have died than it is to test and diagnose people. And so my hope is that we might be able to get some of this data in those countries, but it's, they don't have, the reason that we have so much of this data for Europe and America is they have much stronger infrastructure for this, and they report a lot of it on a weekly basis already. So trying to find equivalents for India, Africa, and for places in South America is my top priority right now.
And just last question is could you just tell us how the UK compares to the rest of Europe in its data publishing on that?
Sure. So the ONS has, I think, probably the best weekly data of anyone I've seen. It's updated. There's less time lag on that than pretty much anywhere else. So in terms of data availability for the excess death stuff, it's really good. There are for the UK, we've got 2 types of official death toll. We've got the daily one, which you've all seen on the news and gets read out each night, and I think currently is around 37,000. The ONS also produces a retrospective official toll based on analysis of death certificates, and that's more like 40, I think, at the moment. And our excess deaths overall are approaching, I think they're 55 or 60. So we're missing quite a large, the official death tolls are missing quite a large chunk of what's going on. And when you look at, I think the best examples in Europe are France and Belgium, where their official death tolls, they're including a lot of people in care homes, which is something that we've not done as effectively, and their official death tolls are picking up something like 95% of the excess. So there are definitely countries that are on the official death toll that are doing a better job than we are.